He thought it was just another walk home. The street was quiet, the sun dipping low, kids' laughter fading in the distance. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, or so it seemed. But sometimes, the scariest moments don't come from shadows. They come from the people who are supposed to protect you. Hit like and subscribe to join our community. In a single heartbeat, his ordinary life turned into something he could never forget. Not because of what he did, but because of something he could never change. And what happened under those flashing lights wasn't just his story, it's America's story. So let me ask you this. How can a simple walk home expose a truth so powerful that it forces us to question the very idea of belonging? He wasn't the kind of person who wanted to stand out. Most days, he blended into the rhythm of his small American neighborhood. The same coffee shop every morning where the barista knew his order by heart. A quick jog before work. Headphones in, eyes on the sidewalk. Evenings at home, eating dinner with family, flipping through the news before bed. He worked hard, paid his bills on time, and was always there when people needed him. The kind of man you'd describe as ordinary. The same kind of dream most of us chase. To live in peace, to belong. But even in the calm of routine, some moments reminded him life wasn't the same for everyone. Subtle, quiet reminders that he was seen differently. The cashier paused when he handed over his ID. The security guard's eyes lingered a little too long as he walked through the store. The way conversations sometimes fell silent when he entered a room, laughter cut short as if his presence shifted the air. These were the cuts that didn't bleed but left scars anyway. He told himself it didn't matter. That if he kept his head down, if he worked harder than everyone else, if he smiled at the right moments, maybe it would fade. Maybe the stares, the whispers, the quiet exclusions would disappear. But deep down, he knew they never really do, because racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight in the smallest interactions until the weight of it becomes impossible to ignore. He tried to carry on. Day after day, jogging past the same houses, waving politely at neighbors who didn't always wave back. Sitting in work meetings where his ideas were repeated by others and suddenly praised. Pretending not to hear the muffled jokes that weren't meant for his ears. And through it all, he kept telling himself, don't make it worse, just let it go. But racism doesn't let go. It grows stronger in silence. And while his life on the surface looked calm, ordinary, even safe, the truth was different. Every day chipped away at him a little more, leaving cracks in the quiet life he had built. What he didn't know was that those cracks were about to split wide open, and when they did, there would be no going back. It started with whispers, the kind you're not supposed to hear but somehow always do. At first it was the office break room. A promotion list went up, and his name wasn't on it, though he had worked longer hours, solved problems others couldn't, and given more than anyone expected. He shrugged it off, telling himself maybe next time, but then came the meetings. Ideas he shared were ignored. Someone else repeated them, suddenly praised, lauded for brilliance he had already delivered. Each time he felt smaller, erased, like his voice didn't matter in a world built to overlook him. Outside work, the signs were there too. He noticed the security guard following him slightly longer than everyone else when he entered the grocery store. Neighbors who used to wave at him now shifted uncomfortably when he passed. One evening, as he walked past the playground, he overheard a boy whispering to his friend, "My mom says we shouldn't play near him." That sentence pierced him deeper than any confrontation ever could, each small wound stacked on the last. Soon, life wasn't just about fitting in. It was about fighting to breathe in a world determined to suffocate him. He tried to ignore it, to tell himself it wasn't personal. But the pattern was clear. Racism doesn't disappear when left unchallenged. It grows bolder, more confident. Then came the breaking point at work. He arrived one morning to find his desk moved to a shadowed corner of the office. No explanation, no note, just silence. When he asked why, the room's stillness answered louder than any words could. Every glance around him was loaded, not with curiosity or concern, but with subtle judgment. The message was clear. He didn't belong. A few days later, a neighborhood meeting was called. Hoping to feel included, to voice concerns as a resident, he attended. Instead, he found a room full of people speaking about him as if he weren't there. Concerns about safety, property values, fitting in, every coded phrase a blade cutting deeper than any outright insult. Every word proved that no matter how much he gave, they had already decided he would never be enough. Each day, the world outside felt smaller. Sidewalks seemed narrower, doors more distant, conversations more threatening. Every step carried the weight of invisible eyes. Every word he spoke risked dismissal or scrutiny. He began noticing things he hadn't before. Subtle looks in grocery lines, hushed tones at the school drop-off, laughter that stopped mid-sentence when he entered the room. One evening, as he walked home, he replayed every slight in his mind. Every unfair glance, every whispered word, every meeting where his contributions were stolen. Each one compounded, stacked like a storm ready to break. And he realized he couldn't keep ignoring it. Racism didn't wait politely for acknowledgement. It didn't fade if you kept your head down. It demanded confrontation whether he wanted it or not. The tension wasn't just emotional, it was physical. His chest ached from holding back anger. His hands shook when he tried to type emails explaining his points. Sleep was shallow, haunted by visions of being erased, overlooked, and punished for existing in the simplest ways. The quiet, ordinary world he had built was collapsing around him, and then came the night. A simple walk home after work, the sun slipping below the horizon, the streets bathed in the fading orange glow of dusk. Normally, he enjoyed the quiet, the rhythm of his steps, the calm of the street. But tonight, something felt different. The air carried a heaviness, a warning that danger didn't always announce itself. Headlights cut through the dark. A patrol car slowed, its beam locking on him. This was routine. He had been stopped before, but something in the officer's tone immediately set him on edge. Calmness was mistaken for defiance. Questions became demands. Existence itself seemed criminal. Around him, whispers swirled, judgment pressing down like an invisible weight. And then, the words that would sear into his memory. You people never learn. Simple, casual, venomous. Enough to strip away the last thread of dignity he clung to. In that moment, he wasn't a neighbor, a father, a human being. He was reduced to a label, a stereotype, something they had already decided he was, and nothing he did could change it. He froze, heart hammering, chest tight. The night blurred. The officer's commands, the murmurs of onlookers, the cold wind biting at his skin. He was humiliated, unbroken, and burning with a thought that had grown louder with every injustice he had endured. This ends tonight. The night was supposed to be ordinary. The street was quiet, the sun fully gone, leaving only the glow of streetlights. He walked toward his car, each step familiar, each breath measured. But the calm was deceptive. Then the headlights appeared, bright, sharp, unyielding. A patrol car slowed, beam locking on him like a predator sizing its prey. He froze. He knew the routine. He had been stopped before, but this time it felt different. It wasn't just suspicion. It was something heavier, more personal, more venomous. Where are you going? The officer demanded. I'm walking home, he said, voice steady. The words seemed to irritate him, calmness mistaken for arrogance. Every gesture, every breath examined, judged. Around him, shadows of onlookers gathered, whispering, staring. Not at him, the person, but at the stereotype they had already decided he was. Each question felt like a blade. Every pause is a sentence of accusation. His heart pounded not from fear of the law, but from the crushing weight of being seen as other in a world that refused to see him as human. And then, the words that cut deeper than any action. You people never learn. Simple, casual, venomous. Enough to strip away the dignity he had clung to, thread by thread, for years. In that moment, he wasn't a father, a neighbor, a son. He was reduced to a label that no effort could erase. The crowd's murmurs blurred together. The wind chilled his skin. The patrol lights flashed red and blue, painting the world in harsh, accusatory colors. Everything slowed. Every thought, every memory of the whispers, the stares, the exclusions, flashed in his mind. Every single injustice he had endured pressed down on him at once, and then he realized he could let this break him. Or he could let it fuel him. He stood there, humiliated yet unbroken, his breathing heavy, his hands tight at his sides. The words echoed in his ears, but he refused to let them define him. Something inside snapped, a fierce determination igniting. This ends tonight. Because if the world wanted to see him as a stereotype, it was time he showed them he was a human being who would not be erased. The tension was unbearable. The audience is left on the edge. What will he do next? Will he fight? Will he stay silent? The night didn't end with an apology. It ended in silence, him walking home, shoulders heavy, dignity bruised, heart torn between anger and exhaustion. No justice was served. No officer held accountable. And yet something inside him had shifted. For days, he replayed every second in his head, questioning himself. Did I speak too calmly? Should I have been louder? Would it have been different if my skin were lighter? Questions with no answers, only deeper wounds. But those wounds became a mirror, forcing him to see the harsh truth. Racism isn't just an event. It's a system, a shadow that follows you even when you've done nothing wrong. He could have stayed silent. Many do just to survive. But instead, he shared his story, first with friends, then neighbors, and eventually online. And when the word spread, something powerful happened. People who had stayed quiet began speaking up too. Stories poured in, different faces, same pain. What had been his private humiliation became a collective voice that no flashing lights could silence. He realized he wasn't fighting just for himself. He was fighting for every child who would grow up walking streets where suspicion lived louder than trust. Every parent worried when their son left home at night. Every person who wondered if existing was enough to make them a target. And maybe the hardest truth of all, racism doesn't always explode in headlines. Sometimes it seeps quietly into ordinary nights, ordinary lives, until someone finally says, enough. He had choices. He could let silence win, or he could break it. And by speaking, by standing, by refusing to let the world erase him, he became part of the fight. So I leave you with this. When you hear stories like his, do you turn away? Or do you lean in, uncomfortable but awake, ready to challenge the quiet injustices around you? Because silence is exactly how injustice survives. And if you think this story ends here, think again. Every voice that joins this fight makes the next story, the next moment, just a little less painful. The question is, will you be one of them? If this story touched you, don't just watch, be part of the change. Hit subscribe and join our community of voices that matter.